by political analyst Thabo Sholema-Shau to weigh in on it all. And Thabo, the ANC, shall we say, has had a good run in terms of the provincial conferences that have happened in the last few months or so. Even where there were some signals of a dispute, in the end, they did go ahead. I mean, one thinks of the regional conference of Ekurhuleni, which at some point looked like, it was precarious, but in the end, it managed to proceed and conclude its business. The ANC Eastern Cape Provincial Conference is another example that we can cite. But it seems that a good run may have come to an end in the Northwest. What's your reading of what we are seeing playing out in the Northwest?
Perfectly spot on. Good afternoon to us and good afternoon to your viewers. You are spot on about that analysis. But over the past conferences that had glitches, I would assume that they have gathered and garnered some bit of experience as to how to resolve various conflicts, including the legal ones that threaten the continuation of the conference. In this instance, we've seen part of the conflict resolution mechanism. They have relied heavily on barring or somehow quarantining the votes of those delegates whose credentials were in dispute. And so that was one mechanism that they had used. It would take a bit of more creativity in Northwest because this is a very complicated province. Underrated as it is riddled with various political shenanigans, not just that, but also contestation, which has become extremely troubled. At the heart of it, Thulas, you'd know that it's the IPC that has been headed by Hlomane Chauke. And part of the disputes, amongst others, from some delegates at least and branches, were that how do you have some members of the IPC who then contest the elections? It's like a referee then choosing to be a striker at a soccer game. That is really unheard of in any other instance. And it's quite sad that the ANC National did not see this as a big problem, and they should have at least contemplated this as a problem. So I suspect, Thulas, in my conclusionary remarks on this issue, I suspect that in this particular instance, it would take much more creativity. You have players like Supra Mahumapelo, who is completely underrated and at times ridiculed, but he's ANC through and through, and he understands the corners and the shortcomings of the ANC, and he's going to use it to his fullest advantage. At this point, people need to sit around the table and talk. I don't even think that will be enough in this instance.
Yeah, but the problems in the Northwest are not new, Thabo, are they? Because, I mean, even when Supra Mahumapelo was the leader of the ANC in the Northwest, the chairperson in that province, even one of his conferences, I remember, it was called the Valentine's Day Conference. Even that was contested. But also the manner in which he then ended up leaving office in the Northwest, creating the absence of the presence is what he called it, all that confusion. So I suspect, I don't know if you share this suspicion, that this is layering upon layer of complexity in that there's a history of disputes, particularly as they relate to the standing of branches, and in this instance, the standing of the interim provincial committee, which has now been challenged in court.
I share that, and it's a bit of a heavy layer in this instance that was brought in by the IPC in a way that the ANC National outsourced the solutions to the IPC, which did not do any much good. You'd remember that even in the times of the then Premier, Professor Mokgoro, the Northwest IPC were really pushing hard for him to get out of office. They were challenging him, they were fighting with him, at times unfairly so. However, the IPC in this instance, if truth be spoken, a lot of blames must be put at their door because they've had all these years to correct and to make sure that when conference sits, as it is sitting now, all these issues have been properly ventilated. And if they did their jobs, we wouldn't be here at this present moment. But their keenness and their appetite of pushing for office, at least some of its members, is indicative of ambitions that have been harbored. And that questions, did they really do a proper cleanup, or were they up to themselves? And you're quite right about the issues being historical in Northwest. This is one province, and this conference, if it goes ahead, it's a do or die for Northwest in this particular instance, especially 2 years ahead of the anticipated national and provincial elections in 2024. Northwest, if it continues in this instance, it will lose the province to other parties, perhaps a coalition government in 2024. But sadly, it has already lost so much as far as service delivery. Thulas, you and I are not going to argue about the lack of service delivery in Northwest.
No,
that's why
not.
Companies like Clover in the Jobotla district, in the Jobotla municipality, encompassing Lichtenberg, amongst others, Clover decided to pull out and say, we are leaving pronouncedly on the issues of service delivery. We can't continue doing business like this. And that filters directly into the House of the African National Congress. We can't put that anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a point that's being made by some who are giving commentary on this situation. For instance, you've had these, was it about 7 provincial government departments that were under administration at some point. And I don't know if all of them have exited that particular process. You have municipalities that have become altogether dysfunctional. So how much is riding on this for the national ANC then, in trying to present a picture, having come out of its national policy conference, preparing for its elective conference in December, in trying to present a picture that says, actually, we can still pull off, despite the odds, we can still pull off this unity and renewal project and deliver a solid organization to its custodians, the branches, in December 2022.
If they fail to make sure that this conference continues without being hindered either by legal or other political, intra-political issues inside the ANC, it will be a strong blemish, and it may set negative precedents in subsequent conferences, because it would be seen as though the ANC has failed completely, and this recipe from Northwest will be used in other regions, areas, and so on. So a lot rides on this, to answer your question directly. It is a do or die for the ANC. And the ANC would want to say that and to claim a whole lot of credit if this conference continues. But it appears that people are very adamant. Some members of the ANC in this instance are very, they seem to be adamant. Thulas, lest we forget that the critical issues, if for whatever reason the IPC members cannot legally cast their votes, then their legitimacy as a structure will come to question. And if that happens, the house of cards falls apart, because then do you then say that in the past 2 years, the legitimacy has completely been thrown out of the window? The decisions that they've taken at the IPC, should they be reversed? And there are many, to say the least. So a lot rides on this. And if I would suspect that Luthuli House, in this particular instance, should be gathering some of their top leadership, some of their best negotiators to go and handle this process. This conference, honestly, there's a lot that's riding on it. And part of the biggest problem, one of the biggest headaches that they have, is Supra Mahumapelo.
Yeah. All right, Thabo Shole Mashau, let's leave it there for now. He's a political analyst weighing in on the ANC conference.